We have got to stop crowning Anthony Edwards with anything. I'm going to go as far as to say this, okay? Let's stop saying he's even on Kevin Garnett's level in terms of Timberwolves great players to this point. Anthony Edwards has routinely disappeared in clutch moments, and this isn't new. Let's just break down some Anthony Edwards stats in this one, guys. Okay, he had 4 points in the first half. He had to be told to be aggressive. He was aggressive early in the second half, but that was after he had to be told to be aggressive. The fact that he had to be told to be aggressive was crazy. That's absolutely ridiculous, okay? He had 4 points in the first half, but the most notable thing that we saw was 0 points in the final 5 minutes of the game, except for a free throw on an intentional foul with 3.5 seconds left. That was the only point he scored in the final 5 minutes of this game. Maybe the final 6 minutes. I don't have the exact stat sheet in front of me, but it might have been the final 6 minutes. But I know the final 5 minutes, your go-to player, your star, your Michael Jordan, who is set to actually break most of Kevin Garnett's franchise records in Minnesota, because that's been such a sad sack franchise for all those years, managed 0 points in the final 5 minutes, except for a free throw with 3.5 seconds left. He was 1 of 6 from 3. Okay. He missed a wide open 3 when Minnesota was making a comeback in the third quarter. They were down by 4 with 8 minutes left. I remember this distinctly. There was a pass to Anthony Edwards, wide open from the top of the key, wide open, and bricked a 3. It was a pretty bad one too. And that could have cut the game to 1. And so that was a pretty embarrassing one by Anthony Edwards to do that. And not only did he only have 1 point on a free throw in the final 5 minutes of the game, he only took 1 shot in the final 4 minutes. He's a choke artist, a stat patter, and a front runner. And guys, I saw this, by the way, his first year in the playoffs. I gave him a break for it because I always give breaks for first years in the playoffs. But he was a huge part of that Minnesota team that was choking huge leads to the Grizzlies. Again, talking about as a Grizzly fan, when their trajectory was what OKC's is now, except OKC has surpassed it. Minnesota could have knocked out and eliminated Memphis in Anthony Edwards' first playoff series. They didn't because they kept blowing leads, and Anthony Edwards was a huge part of that by just playing dumb basketball. But he was young. I let it go, but it's consistently happened. And guys, what's Anthony Edwards' claim to fame? What is Anthony Edwards' claim to fame to this point? It is Minnesota shocking Denver last year in the NBA playoffs. But I got to point this out, and no one points this out, and it's the Kobe LA talking point in 2010 in the NBA Finals. Anthony Edwards was 6 of 24 against Denver in that Game 7 last year that Minnesota won. Karl-Anthony Towns and Jay McDaniels carried him in that game. He didn't have that much to do with it. Okay, Anthony Edwards gets very little credit, by the way, for Minnesota winning that Game 7 game against Denver. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that he deserves any sort of credit for it. Because, again, Anthony Edwards was 6 of 24. That's literally Kobe's exact stat line in Game 7 against Boston in 2010 in the finals, which a lot of people slam Kobe for to this day to say he didn't really deserve finals MVP. But we're going to pretend that Anthony Edwards does deserve credit? No, he's not clutch. Now, his best playoff series, per the analytics, was a 4-1 loss to Denver the year before that. Now, I don't hold that series lost against him. Okay, I don't. It's kind of like when I don't hold the loss to the Lakers in 5 games in the finals in 2000 against Allen Iverson. I don't hold LeBron getting swept by the Spurs against him in 2007. I don't hold that 4-1 series loss to Denver 2 years ago against Anthony Edwards. But I'm also not going to give you credit for that being your best analytical series when that wasn't really a series, okay? Denver dominated that. So it's hard for me to give him any sort of credit. Again, I'm not holding it against him. But you can't cite that as evidence of him performing in the postseason when they lost in 5 games. Now, let's not forget last year. When he stat padded, when one of his better playoff games was in an elimination game to Dallas, he had 28 points, but it was a blowout loss. They got destroyed in that game. So here's my question. When has Anthony Edwards, in a meaningful playoff game in crunch time, truly stepped up when it was close in the fourth quarter. And I'm not talking about, you play a lot of NBA playoff games, you're going to have some nights, okay? I don't want to hear about game 3 the other night. I'm talking about you're in an elimination game, you're in a closeout game, you're in a game 7, you're in something like this, you're in a chance to tie a series up at 2 to get back into it before you have to go back on the road. Whenever it's a tough moment, Anthony Edwards shrinks. And look at and again, Julius Randle deserves most of the flack on this. From a blame pie perspective, Julius Randle had 5 turnovers, 5 points, and was 1 of 7 from the field. But Anthony Edwards also had 5 turnovers. He only had 16 points, and he was 1 of 7 from 3, okay? 5 of 13 overall, no points in the final 5 minutes, and took, one free throw in the final 5 minutes on a gimme intentional foul, and took just 1 shot in the final 4 minutes. That was an absolute travesty of a performance by Anthony Edwards, okay? And the point I want to get is, when has he performed in the most meaningful moments in the playoffs? It hasn't happened. He had help in this one. Jay McDaniels did his part to try to help win this game. Jay McDaniels had 4 steals, 22 points, was 3 of 6 from 3, 9 of 15 from the field. Dante DiVincenzo, 21 points off the bench, 5 of 8 from 3. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 5 of 8 from 3, 9 of 15 from the field, 23 points. Naz Reid comes in, 11 points. Terrence Shannon with 9 points in 8 minutes. Minnesota got 62 points from their bench. They got 62 points from their bench in this game. Their bench outscored OKC's bench 62-27, and they still lose at home because their 2 best players, their star Anthony Edwards, the crowned future Michael Jordan, along with Julius Randle, completely shrink. How in the world can you defend that? Let's stop with I'm serious on this. This is it. This is over. You've got to stop with the Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan comparisons. Heck, even Anthony Edwards, Kobe comparisons, even though data shows Kobe was not that clutch in the playoffs. You got to stop, honestly, with the Anthony Edwards, Kevin Garnett comparisons in Minnesota. I mean, stat-wise, he might be chasing all of KG's records. KG's PER and analytics are still higher at the same age when they were playing in their same year in the league to this point. And on top of that, I know people are going to say KG lost 6 first-round series in a row. Maybe it was 7 with Minnesota. Guys, those teams were horrible. Those teams were terrible. The second best player that Kevin Garnett had for most of his time was Wally Szczerbiak. Okay? When he got Sam Cassell and Latrell Sprewell, who, by the way, at that stage in 2003, 2004, should not be as high as Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert in terms of quality. And yes, Jay McDaniels too. He took them to the Western Conference Finals where they lost to the star-studded Lakers, Shaq and Kobe, and lost in 6 games. Minnesota's probably going to lose their Western Conference Finals in 5 games. Okay, I just want to point that out. Now, yes, they've gone to it multiple times under Anthony Edwards, but again, he's had much more help. So we got to stop. I'm going to put a nail in this. I'm going to push back on the whole Anthony Edwards KG comparisons in Minnesota. Okay, KG is still the greatest T-Wolf ever to this point. Anthony Edwards could surpass him, but there's no way you could look at these type of playoff performances and think that Anthony Edwards deserves anything but scorn and that he ever would deserve to be in the same sentence as KG and as a Minnesota Timberwolf, and also ever in the same sentence in general with the Kobe's and the Michael Jordans, the way people say. That was just embarrassing. Anthony Edwards needs to take a long shower. It's because of him and Julius Randle that this series is over. Ant-Man was absolutely atrocious. And you guys can hate on Skip Bayless all day, but he's right. Ant-Man was Can't-Man when it mattered most. It is true. The more the game matters, the more Anthony Edwards shrinks. And that was a massive shrinking